What we're going to talk about today is we're going to put all of our properties that we've learned so far, and we're going to apply them to algebra problems given a parallelogram. So the 5 properties we've learned so far are opposite sides are congruent, opposite sides are parallel, opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary or equal 180, and your diagonals bisect each other, which means cut them in half. It almost acts as a midpoint. So we're going to apply this to 4 problems, and then you'll have time to do your homework, which is 20 through 22 in your homework packet. So problem number 1, here I give you a parallelogram with 2 diagonals. Knowing that one of your rules is about diagonals, it means that it bisects each other. So they basically cut each other in half, which means these 2 pieces would be congruent. So we can say we know the measure of x because it's the same as the other, which is 3. So x has a measure of 3. Another property we know about parallelograms is about its sides, and that opposite sides are congruent. So we can say that your opposite sides have to be the same length. We know one side, the right side of our parallelogram is 5. And the left side of the parallelogram is z, which it would then be 5. The perimeter of this whole shape is 30. Because it's 30, we can say that we have a perimeter of 30, which means all the way around. We've used 10 units of it so far for the right and the left side. This gives us 20 units left. Because it gives us 20 units left and it's split evenly, okay, because both the top and the bottom segments are the same length, it's split evenly, we would divide that by 2, which would say we have 10 for both W and Y. So again, all we did in problem number 1 is apply the properties of parallelograms that we know and saying something is equal to each other or something is supplementary. For problem number 2, here we have 2 or 3 angles of our parallelogram. Okay, since we're only dealing with angles, we can only say opposite angles are congruent and consecutive angles are supplementary. If we look at the opposite angles, the top left has x's, the bottom right has y's. We can't really do anything with that yet. So if we look here, your 2 consecutive angles, x squared plus 4x and 3x plus 10, only is dealing with x's. These are consecutive angles, so we know they're supplementary. So you would say x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 10 is equal to 180. If you combined your like terms, and every time we have an x squared, we have to factor. Okay, so we would combine our like terms here, and we would have x squared plus 7x. In order to factor, we need one side to equal 0, so we have to move our 180 to the other side by subtracting. 10 minus 180 is negative 170. When we factor, we have to figure out what multiplies to negative 170 and adds to 7. Those numbers are 17 and negative 10. To find x, we have to still solve for those values. So you would say x plus 17 because that's positive, and x minus 10 because it's negative, and you use zero product property. You subtract the 17, and so you have x equals negative 17. You would add your 10, so x equals 10. We can't have a negative because it would then create a negative angle measure, and you can't have that. So that would disappear, and you're left with x is 10. Now, in order to solve for y, you could do one of 2 ways. You could say that x squared plus 4x is equal to 5y minus 15 and solve. because opposite angles are congruent. Or you could say 3x plus 10 plus 5y minus 15 is equal to 180 and substitute in that way. I'm going to use that property because we used it before. So 3x plus 10, this angle here, plus 5y minus 15, it's a consecutive angle, which means they're right next to each other. That's going to equal 180. Now we know what x is, so we can substitute that in. So 3 times 10 is 30. And now we can combine like terms. So we would have 5y, 30 plus 10 is 40, minus 15 is plus 25. When you subtract 25, you get 155. So you have 5y equals 155. And 155 divided by 5 is 31. So x is 10, y is 31. And we were able to figure out how to set up our equations based on the properties we know. There's two more problems. Both of these are systems of equations. The first one, it says solve for x and y, and gram is a parallelogram. So we are given angles. Again, we can only talk about opposite angles congruent and consecutive angles equal 180 degrees. Because we have one angle that has both x and y, and the others only have x or y, we have to set up a system of equations. So we're going to use our two properties that we have. Opposite angles are congruent, which means you would set g equal to a, so 5x plus 5y is equal to 12y minus 10. Because it's a systems of equations, we have to have x plus y equals our constant number with no variable on the other side of the equal sign. So we need to move our 12y to the other side. So you have 5x minus 7y is equal to negative 10. On the other hand, to get the second equation, because remember you need two, we have consecutive angles. So we can say, I'm going to box this just so we know where it's at. We can say 5x plus 5y plus 6x minus 2 is equal to 180 because consecutive means supplementary. If you combined your like terms, you have 11x plus 5y minus 2 equals 180. Add your 2 to get the whole numbers to the other side, and you have 11x plus 5y is equal to 182. Those are the two equations that you need in order to solve for this problem. So we would have 5x minus 7y is equal to negative 10. 11x plus 5y is equal to 182. Now I'm going to solve by elimination. So that means that I have to eliminate or get rid of one of your two variables. I'm going to choose y because one's already negative. So you have to figure out what is the constant or the whole number that you're going to have that matches. So I'm going to multiply the whole top by 5 and the whole bottom by 7 to get 35 here. So you would have 25x minus 35y equals negative 50. For the bottom, you have 77x plus 35y equals 182 times 7. It equals 1,274. Your y's will cancel, so you're left with 102x equals 1,224. Divide by 102, and your answer is going to be 12. Now remember, I asked you to solve both x and y, so we need to take this x and substitute it back into one of your equations, one of the two original. So in order to find this, you're going to say 5 times 12 minus 7y equals negative 10. 5 times 12 is 60. Subtract 60. You have negative 7y is equal to negative 70. Divide by negative 7, and y equals 10. So your answer is x is 12, y is 10. The last problem, problem number 4, it says solve for x and y. And again, you have a parallelogram. So Army is a parallelogram. Here we are given the lengths of all the sides. And one of the properties of the sides is that opposite sides are congruent, which means AY is congruent to RM and AR is congruent to YM. So we're going to take each of these and set it equal. Let's say 3x plus 5y is equal to 47, and 12x minus 3y is equal to 96. I'm going to multiply the top equation, because 3 is a multiple of 12, by multiplying it by negative 4. So I'm going to keep this equation the same, 12x minus 3y equals 96, and I'm going to distribute the negative 4. So this would be negative 12x minus 20y, and 96 times 4, negative 4, oh, I'm sorry, not 96, 47 times negative 4 is 188, a negative 188. Your x's will cancel. Your negative 3 plus negative 20 is negative 23y. 96 minus 188 is a negative 92. And when you divide by 23, negative 23, x is a positive 4, because two negatives make a positive. So you can take either of these equations and substitute it back in. So you have 3x plus 5 times y equals 47. The y value we found was 4. So you would say 3x plus 20 is equal to 47. Subtract 20. 3x is equal to 27. And when you divide by 3, x is 9. So in this problem, x is 9, y is 4. So your homework, on your homework packet, is numbers 20 through 22. It's 3 problems where you have to solve for x and y. But you also have to tell me, is it a parallelogram or not, and why? So like we did yesterday, if you are given an image where you see both sets of sides are congruent, then say this is a parallelogram because opposite sides are congruent. So you have to explain to me also why. I want you to have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday.